Yesterday, the Lunduke Journal reported on Stallman-report.org, a mysterious website that appeared roughly 36 or so hours ago, a very long website that contains page after page of what is essentially a hit piece on Richard Stallman, the founder of the Free Software Foundation and the GNU project. As we reported yesterday, the motives of this particular piece seemed very dubious. It seemed very laser focused on getting rid of key individuals from both within the GNU project and the Free Software Foundation. And the motives behind doing that raised a lot of red flags and alarms. All of that was exacerbated by the fact that the author of Stallman-report.org maintained anonymity. Now, the Lunduke Journal reached out to Stallman-report.org. They provided an anonymous email address. We did get a response after yesterday's report that basically said that they would be maintaining their anonymity. They would not be revealing whoever they are, whether it's one person or multiple, their identity. Now, because of the nature of this website, and it is such a very distinct hit piece, and it seems so laser focused on causing what appeared to be utter chaos within multiple organizations, the Lunduke Journal did a little bit more digging, and I am pretty confident I know exactly who is behind this website. The gentleman's name is DeVault, and I'm going to give Drew every opportunity to rebuff this if he wishes. I've reached out to Drew and not heard back, and I'm going to lay out to you right now why it appears that DeVault is at least one of, if not the primary or perhaps only individual behind Stallman-report.org. Let's start with the simple who is information. I reported on this yesterday, but they've redacted and sealed their DNS WHOIS registration for privacy. If you go to check out the WHOIS for Stallman-report.org, you will find that almost everything is redacted for privacy. Well, golly, that sure is a roadblock. Luckily, we do have some other bits of tools we can utilize to try and track things down. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to check out the DNS changes for Stallman-report.org, and they're very, very simple because it was created on October 3rd using the registrar and the name servers of the registrar iwantmyname.net, which I had never heard of before, and when I tried to go to that website, it didn't seem terribly functional. I've never heard of iwantmyname.net. However, they went ahead and registered that, and then on October 9th moved everything over to Cloudflare, right? Well, iwantmyname.net, that's kind of peculiar. What other websites might have I want mine? You know what? Before we get into that, let's look at the IP addresses. The IP addresses is the most important part. The IP address for Stallman-report.org has changed a handful of times because currently it's hosted by Cloudflare, and that IP changes over time. And if you look at this from viewdns.info, we have two recent IP addresses, both on Cloudflare. But the first IP address, the one this website was registered initially and initially pointed to, was 46.23.81.157. Now, a lot of you out there are thinking, okay, great, that's an IP address. What good does that do me? Well, we can look and see what other websites are using that IP address. And it just so happens that IP address is currently in use by DrewDeVault.com. 46.23.81.157. It is the same IP address pointing to the same VPS, I am assuming. In fact, let's go back here to, let's see, do I have this here? The domain history of DrewDeVault.com. Well, that website's been around a long time, but let's scroll down to the most recent changes. Oh, DrewDeVault.com also now has switched over to using iwantmyname.net as the registrar and name server. DrewDeVault was for a period of time hosting stallman-report.org on the same server as DrewDeVault.com. It was hosted by Drew DeVault. Now, who is Drew DeVault? Well, Drew DeVault over here has a Mastodon account over at fostodon.org, and Drew DeVault has spent the better part of the last 2 days talking about Richard Stallman and the Stallman Report, reboosting people talking about Stallman-report.org, or criticizing Richard Stallman, or engaging in ridicule of anyone who would defend Richard Stallman or attack the authenticity of Stallman-report.org. It is page after page of it. And that's not all. If you go to drewdevault.com, you'll find Drew DeVault's blog, where he focuses primarily, more than almost anything else, on Richard Stallman, specifically on areas relating to neurodivergence and accountability in free software, where he talks about how Richard Stallman should be attacked. This was from a few days ago, I should point out. This was from September 25th, so a little over 2 weeks ago, shortly before, a couple of days before Stallman-report.org was registered. A few days before that was registered, he had an article entitled Accountability in Free Software, and talking about how Richard Stallman needs to be held accountable for his ideas and his statements and the like. If you go back a little bit further to the previous, to last November, he has another article entitled Richard Stallman's Political Discourse on Sex, which contains a huge amount of information that is contained in Stallman-report.org, including some exact sentences pulled from it and much of the same writing style. Yeah. This is the author. It seems pretty conclusive of Stallman-report.org. Drew DeVault wished to remain anonymous. However, there was no leaks here. There was no whistleblowing here. There is no, and a really shoddy job of trying to maintain his anonymity here. So I'm going to go ahead and report this. And the reason I'm going to report on this is very simple. Over the last period of time, Drew DeVault has attacked rather ruthlessly and crudely several different people and groups within the free software and open source world, including like Hyperland. He famously had a big dust up last year with the developer behind Hyperland, the desktop environment and window manager for Linux, and several others. And he has clearly a very, very strong and powerful political agenda. When you read through his Mastodon social media account, it is filled with fairly vulgar statements in some cases, and just generally ruthless attacks on people who he might not agree with politically. But instead of, engaging in a reasonable chat, and instead of talking about these sorts of issues with people and being mature adults about it, he goes on the assault. He goes on the offensive regularly. And you can see a lot of that when you go to drewdevault.com. So Drew DeVault is someone who attacks a lot of people, attacks a lot of ideas, attacks a lot of groups and organizations. He goes on the attack. That's what he does, right? So I don't really feel like Drew DeVault, being the author, or at least the webmaster of Stallman-report.org, I don't feel like that really needs to be a private thing. That's not an issue. It's also not out of character for him. Of course he's going to attack Stallman. He's already been attacking Stallman. He's been attacking Stallman for quite some time now, publishing multiple blog posts on the exact same topic as Stallman-report.org. So this isn't me publishing this for all of you to see. It's publicly available information. I'm just providing it all to you. I should also point out that Drew DeVault is the creator of SourceHut.org, a source code repository and hosting platform that has had some tie-ins with the Software Freedom Conservancy, as my understanding. Now, some of the individuals within the Software Freedom Conservancy, not all, but some, have also been very vocal in their dislike of Richard Stallman. So there's a lot of tie-ins related here. So there you go. There we have it. We know at least one of the authors of Stallman-Report.org. And it's not a surprising one in the least. The more you look into attacks on open source projects, free software projects, individuals who are of any level of prominence within the software development world, the more you begin to see the same names over and over again of small teams, small groups of individuals who go on the offensive to attack, to take down, to hurt, to destroy, to dismantle different functioning groups whenever those target groups don't have the correct politics. This is a common recurring thing. We see these sorts of attacks happening with NixOS and OpenSUSE and on and on and on. And I mean, we could sit here for days. If you've followed the Lunduke Journal, lunduke.com, lunduke.locals.com, you've already seen a lot of that. But Drew DeVault is a name that's come up a couple of times now in attacks on open source people, open source communities and whatnot, who he feels do not adequately bow down to whatever the personal politics of Drew DeVault is. And it's always I'm just going to say this, it is always hard extreme leftists doing the attacks on everyone else, whether you're centrist or just mildly leftist or right-leaning, it doesn't matter. It's always hard extreme leftists attacking everyone else. And Drew DeVault, I think, based on the information he's put out there, would very clearly fall into this category. And so it needs to be pointed out that these people are going on the offensive, and clearly what the motivation here is to bring down parts of the Free Software Foundation, to destroy the livelihoods and the public perception of specific individuals and of organizations that he and probably others simply do not feel have the proper politics. And that is highly disconcerting. Also, if you're going to try and cover up your tracks and be completely anonymous, do a better job of it. I would like to point out that many individuals have leaked a significant amount of information to the Lunduke Journal over the last year or so, and I've published a huge amount of it here. The Red Hat and IBM leaks were absolutely massive, and those were just the beginning of all of it. And not one whistleblower has ever been identified from the information that I leaked, because I carefully scour it and I actually know what I'm doing when it comes to preserving people's identity when it needs to be preserved. Now, my face is right here. I'm saying my words. You know who I am. When I say all the words in this show, in every article I publish, you know who published it. You can tie it all right back to me, because I do not hide it, because I am not a coward. Drew DeVault is a bit of a coward. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, thanks again. Subscribers to the Lunduke Journal, lunduke.com, lunduke.locals.com. You make the magic possible, baby. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.